Klein, the captain says you don't have to return until Monday. He wants you to take care of your personal affairs first. All right. They're being surprisingly considerate. Speaking of which, Klein thought to himself. The original Klein only got his interview opportunity because he was recommended by the associate professor. I should probably go and explain that I won't be attending any of the follow-up interviews. However, he glanced left and right before speaking. Roseanne, the Church of the Evernight Goddess complete sequence, do you know what its starting point is? The brown-haired girl was visibly shocked. You want to become a Beyonder? She asked in disbelief. Our church's complete sequence begins with sequence 9, sleepless. As the name suggests, sleepless don't need to sleep, and during the night, they become stronger. The deeper the night, the greater their strength. After that comes sequence 8, midnight poet, followed by sequence 7, nightmare. As for the rest, I think only the captain would know. The Church of the Evernight Goddess only has 2 sequence 7 Beyonders in Tingen. As for the other sequences. Right. Old Neil once mentioned that his sequence 9 title is Mystery Prior. Roseanne's expression grew serious. Klein, I really think being an honest civilian employee is the better choice here. Do you understand how dangerous it is to be a Beyonder? A Beyonder's enemies aren't just cultists and dark warlocks, because they can also become their own worst enemy. Almost every year, someone loses control and sacrifices themselves. Klein processed her words carefully. So, in other words, the captain and Ms. Daly are both sequence 7 Beyonders. Nightmare and Spirit Medium, High sequence Beyonders are incredibly rare. So a sequence 7 Beyonder would be considered one of the church's big guns, right? However, I've finally gained more information on Beyonders. Once I gather enough, perhaps I'll find a way to return to my original world. I'll stop thinking about all that for now. Since I got paid today, I'll take Melissa out for a nice meal tonight. That's how we do things in China, the foodie empire. Wait. I only have 3 pence left. That's not even enough to take a coach back home. Maybe I'll ride as far as 3 pence will take me and walk the rest? Or I could go to the bank and exchange my bills. No, that won't work. If I walk, I'll have to go really far, and that's too unsafe. The bank also charges a 0.5% fee for exchanging bills to change. I can't afford such a luxurious service. As Klein was lost in thought, he noticed a clothing store. A clothing store? This will do. He stepped inside, and a shop assistant greeted him warmly. Welcome. Sir, what are you looking to purchase today? A cane, Klein replied. A heavy, sturdy one. The shop assistant presented an option. This cane is made from ironheart wood. It's very heavy and extremely durable. The head is also inlaid with gold. The price is 11 soldi and 7 pence. Would you like to give it a try? Sure. I'll try it, Klein said hesitantly. He thought to himself. 11 soldi and 7 pence? That's robbery. Just because it has a bit of gold inlaid, they think they can charge whatever they want? After testing the cane, he shook his head. Ironheart wood is a bit too heavy. The shop assistant nodded and presented another option. Then how about this one, sir? It's made from walnut wood. The price is 10 soldi and 3 pence. Klein examined it but remained unconvinced. I don't think this one works either. The shop assistant quickly brought out another cane. Then this one? It's made from the core of a white bolly tree and inlaid with silver. 7 soldi and 10 pence. Klein hesitated. Let me see another one. The shop assistant sighed slightly before picking another option. Sir, how about this one? It's made of ebony wood, also inlaid with silver, and as hard as steel. 7 soldi and 6 pence. Klein tested its weight and balance before nodding. Not bad. I'll take this ebony wood one, then. The cheapest one, he noted mentally. The shop assistant smiled. Here you go, sir. Klein hesitated for a moment before asking, any chance you could make it a bit cheaper? The shop assistant's smile stiffened. Absolutely not, sir. Sir, here is your cane, and here is your change. Klein inspected the bills carefully. Wonderful. These are all genuine bills. And now, I finally have enough change for a carriage ride home. He sighed in relief. I've finally regained a sense of security. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door. Melissa greeted him as he entered. Let me warm up. The leftovers from last night. Benson might be coming back tomorrow as well. Klein shook his head. Melissa, to celebrate the fact that I've gotten a job, how about we go to the Silver Crown restaurant? I've heard the food there is really good. Melissa hesitated. But, isn't your interview with Tianjin University tomorrow? Klein smiled and shook his head. I found a security company whose mission is to find and protect ancient relics. The work contract lasts for 5 years, and I'll be making £3 a week. He pulled out his payment. Look! They even gave me 4 weeks' salary in advance. Melissa's eyes widened. My goddess, you. She struggled to form a coherent thought before sighing. To be honest, this job does sound really good, but why in the world would they give you 4 weeks' salary in advance? Klein's expression turned serious. Because we need to move somewhere new. Melissa hesitated for a moment before speaking. Klein, to be honest, we live quite comfortably. She paused, then added, I mean, sure, I complain sometimes about not having my own bathroom, but that's just an old habit. She glanced at him, as if trying to gauge his reaction. Do you remember Jenny? Her family, 5 people in total, all share a single room. Compared to them, we're already quite fortunate. So don't waste your salary on moving somewhere new. Besides, I really like Mrs. Smyron's bakery. Klein, however, had a different perspective. I don't mind the current living situation personally, he admitted. But for you, Melissa, it's inconvenient. He folded his arms and continued, besides, my main goal right now is to become a Beyonder. If I stay in a crowded apartment like this, it could cause problems. Melissa frowned but said nothing. Sensing her hesitation, Klein softened his tone. Melissa, the security company I work for has ties to the government, so my income is stable. And I'm not looking for a single-family home, just a townhouse. At the very least, we need a place with our own bathroom. He smiled reassuringly. I like Mrs. Smyron's bread too, so we can find a place near Iron Cross Street. And it's not like I'm in a hurry to move. We have to wait for Benson to return first, or he'll be so shocked. Klein chuckled. He'll probably say something like, my goddess, am I dreaming? Where are my brother and sister? Melissa sighed. No, Klein. If Mr. Frankie finds out we moved early, Benson won't even be able to enter the building when he gets back. As the landlord, Frankie will probably ask him to return his keys. She paused, her expression turning serious. I had a classmate once. When their father's company went bankrupt, their family's financial situation collapsed, and they had to drop out of school. The government isn't stable either. Whenever a new party is elected, chaos follows. She looked him in the eye. We need to save money in case things take a turn for the worse. Klein exhaled slowly, then nodded. All right. He smiled. You really understand these things well, don't you? His tone lightened. Let's celebrate just a little, then. Go out and buy a fish, a cut of beef, a can of cream, and a bottle of ginger beer. It should all cost around 1 solely and 6 pence. As Melissa turned to leave, he called after her, oh, and don't forget Mrs. Smyron's. Let me treat you to a small piece of lemon cake. She hesitated, then nodded. All right. Later, at Tianjin University, Klein stood outside an office door. Come in, a voice called from inside. Klein stepped in and greeted the man behind the desk. Mr. Stone, there's still an hour before the interview. Did you need something? The older man looked up, slightly surprised. Do you remember me? I'm Klein Moretti, a student of Senior Associate Professor Cohen. I believe you've seen my letter of recommendation before. He took a breath before continuing. I just wanted to inform you that I've found a job, so I won't be participating in today's interview. Mr. Stone nodded. I see, congratulations, young man. Thank you for letting us know. I'll pass the message on to the professor and Senior Associate Professor. Thank you, Klein replied politely. Just then, a familiar voice called out. Moretti, you found a different job? Klein turned to see Professor Cohen and Mr. Azik approaching. He blinked in surprise. Ah! Good morning, Professor Cohen, Mr. Azik. What brings you here? Professor Cohen smiled. Good morning, Moretti. Azik and I are here for an academic conference. The professor's gaze sharpened with curiosity. What kind of job did you find? Klein answered, it's with a security company that specializes in locating, collecting, and protecting antiques. They needed a professional consultant, and they're paying me £3 a week. He grinned. As you know, I prefer exploring history rather than just summarizing it. Professor Cohen nodded thoughtfully. Well, everyone chooses their own path. I appreciate that you took the time to inform us instead of simply not showing up. Mr. Azik, who had been silent until now, suddenly asked, by the way, Klein, do you know what happened to Welch and Naya? Klein's expression froze. Mr. Azik continued, I read in the newspaper that they were murdered by burglars. Klein's mind raced. So they're telling the public it was a burglary? And the news spread this quickly. Keeping his voice neutral, he replied, I'm not entirely sure what happened either. He hesitated before adding, Welch recently acquired a notebook that originally belonged to the Antigonus family from the Solomon Empire, in the Fourth Epoch. He asked me to help decipher its contents. I assisted him for the first few days, but after that, I was too busy looking for a job to continue. He glanced between the two professors. Yeah, the police even came to question me about it the other day. Mr. Azik frowned. Antigonus, that name sounds familiar. But no matter how hard I try, I can't remember where I've heard it before. Professor Cohen shook his head. I don't recognize it at all. Mr. Azik sighed. Maybe I'm just confusing it with something else. Klein's gaze remained steady. Professor, Mr. Azik, if you do recall anything or if you come across any new information, could you write to me? As you know, I'm very interested in the history of the Fourth Epoch. Professor Cohen nodded. Of course. No problem. He glanced at the time. Ah. The conference is about to start. Azik, we can't delay any longer. Oh, right. Regarding Welch and Naya, what exactly did the newspapers say? He reached into his bag and pulled out a folded newspaper. If you want details, you can read about it in today's Tianjin Morning Post. Klein took the paper. Thanks. Professor Cohen started to leave. But called over his shoulder, we have to go now. Remember to send us your address. He chuckled. As always, Azik and I can be reached at the Koei University History Department office. Klein nodded absent-mindedly, already skimming the article. According to the police, the crime scene was horrific, and all the valuables were taken. They claim it was the work of a group of vicious criminals. His grip tightened on the newspaper. So they're covering it up completely. Just then, an uneasy feeling washed over him. His body tensed as his instincts screamed at him. Someone is watching me? Klein felt a chill run down his spine. I know I'm not imagining things. I can clearly feel that I'm being watched. He hesitated, his mind racing. Could it be that my transmigration or the luck enhancement ritual strengthened my sixth sense? He muttered under his breath, Iron Cross. Zudland, no, Champagne Street. A coachman nodded. Understood, sir. That'll be 6 pence. As Klein climbed into the carriage, his thoughts spiraled. I can't go straight home. Until I understand the other party's motives, I have no choice but to assume they're malicious. He clenched his fists. I need to find the Nighthawks. Only they can solve this problem. But if I go directly to them, I'll expose them. The carriage came to a stop. Klein took a deep breath and spoke firmly. You can drop me off here. His only option was to head to the Church of the Evernight Goddess, specifically the Tianjin headquarters, St. Celine Cathedral. Inside the cathedral, a priest delivered a solemn sermon. They are naked, without clothes and without food. And they suffer through the cold, uncovered. They are drenched by the heavy rain, and because they have nowhere to take shelter, they huddle around rocks. But the Evernight has not forgotten them. She has shown them compassion. Klein's thoughts were suddenly interrupted. Ha! What's going on? That ominous feeling, the sensation of being watched, had vanished. A voice echoed near him. Child, what are you here to confess? Klein hesitated before replying, I'm actually here to look for Dunn Smith. Someone is following me. The priest studied him for a moment before giving quiet instructions. Head outside the door of the confession room and turn right. Keep going straight until you reach the end. You'll find a secret door nearby. Once inside, someone will lead you the rest of the way. Klein nodded, recalling something Roseanne had once mentioned. If you go left at the crossroads leading to the Chinese Gate, you'll end up at St. Celine Cathedral. A man dressed in black approached him. Come with me. Klein followed silently. The man continued, head down and turn left at the crossroads. You'll arrive at the Chinese Gate. Klein gave a small nod. All right. Thank you. The man responded solemnly, May the goddess bless you. Praise the lady. As Klein stepped inside, he spotted Roseanne and called out, Hey, Roseanne. Roseanne, caught off guard, turned with a bright smile. Hello? The weather today isn't half bad, she froze. Klein? Why are you here? I need to talk to the captain, he said, his voice serious. Roseanne let out an exaggerated sigh. You scared me half to death. Don't you know to knock first? I thought you were the captain. She frowned. What do you need to talk to him about? He's in his office. Klein hesitated. It's a secret. Roseanne pouted but gestured for him to go ahead. Klein knocked lightly and stepped into the captain's office. Good morning, Captain. Dunn Smith looked up. Good morning. Do you need something? Someone is following me, Klein said bluntly. Dunn studied him for a moment. You came here from the cathedral? Klein swallowed. Why yeah. The captain leaned back in his chair. It's possible that Welch's father didn't believe our report on the cause of death. He may have hired a private detective from Wind City to investigate. It could also be related to the notebook. We're still trying to determine where Welch obtained it. And, of course, we can't ignore the possibility that other individuals or organizations are after it. Klein tensed. Then, what should I do? Dunn's expression remained calm. Head back the way you came. Then do anything you want. Klein blinked. Anything? Anything, Dunn confirmed. Of course, don't scare the other party, and don't break the law. Klein let out a breath. All right. As he stepped outside, his mind raced. Now that I've left the cathedral, the feeling of being watched has returned instantly. A shiver ran through him. This is too strange. Why didn't they follow me inside the cathedral? It's not like they've done anything overtly wrong, so there's no reason they couldn't enter, unless a thought struck him. They have a dark history of some kind. What if they're afraid of the church, afraid of the bishop, knowing that the other party might have beyonder powers? He frowned. Yeah. I don't think it's likely that this is just a private detective. Just then, his eyes landed on a sign, the Zutland Shooting Club. His decision was made. He stepped inside and handed a coin to an employee. The attendant bowed slightly. Please follow me, sir. As he walked in, Klein's thoughts hardened. Since I'm being watched, it's probably in my best interest to learn some self-defense. He took his place at the shooting range, lifted the gun, and fired. Bang! Bang! He exhaled slowly, lowering the weapon. Not bad. With practice, not only am I landing my shots, but I'm hitting closer to the center, too. A staff member smiled. We look forward to seeing you again. Klein nodded but sighed as he stepped back outside. Just as I thought. As soon as I'm back on the street, the feeling of being tailed returns.
Like, subscribe, and comment part 3 for next part.